Imagine a vibrant discussion between people that includes both openness and critical thought in the pursuit of truth. The Purchasing Truth podcast is an experience, a journey, an exploration of the impact that negative messages in politics and the media have on our families, community, society, and nation. Join your hosts, Bill Stierle and Tom Hazard, to discover new concepts and language strategies that will reveal effective ways of establishing truth. This podcast series will tackle current events, leadership challenges, healthcare confusion, integrity in business, and many other areas that affect us all. Gain clarity and understanding of the various truth perspectives. Welcome to Purchasing Truth.
Welcome back to Purchasing Truth. I'm Tom Hazard with your host, Bill Stierle. And Bill, today we're going to share with our listeners some lessons from the expert in avoiding accountability and being responsible. So I know our listeners may be wondering who that expert is. So Bill, help us. Who's the expert we're learning from today?
It's very challenging to, you can imagine what it's like, Tom, to you're trying to figure out their world, and you're looking to make your way, and you want to win, you want to get all the things that you want. You don't want to lose your choice. You want to be able to say what you want to say, and accountability means that you also got to realize that you stepped on somebody else's toe, and that there's an ethic or moral or an integrity piece that you got to kind of go like, yeah, I guess I went too far on that. Well, what happens if you don't look at it as an opportunity to step up and into integrity, but you look at it as an opportunity to win? That if I just stay at whatever thing I'm saying or doing, I will tire the other side out. So if I'm an expert, or if we take to study experts in not doing accountability, they have a line on a scale that I am not going to be accountable or responsible at all, or I'm going to take the full responsibility, and I'm going to be a thing like a public servant. I'm going to be a person that works as a volunteer. I'm going to be a person that takes action towards something that I care about. There is a scale. What does it take to get to the expert and to learn lessons on how to not take accountability? Well, the first thing that a person would need to do is create a narrative that they're right and justified for not being accountable. I'm not going to do that. Who cares? That person's a loser, or I can beat the system, or I will figure out how to beat the system. And the biggest challenge has to do with a belief frame that we have. It's called the long arm of the law. Have you ever heard that? The long arm of the law.
Yeah, I've heard that. I would have called it a cliche. The long arm. It's one of those sort of phrases we probably have heard since early youth days.
And what that phrase means is that, you can break the rule once or twice. You can win once or twice at the expense of what is written or what's agreed upon civilly, morally, criminally. You can break it once in a while. Hey, but if you kind of get caught and there's a breadcrumb or a tract, it's called a record of you breaking the agreed upon rules, agreed upon laws. The long arm of the law is going to get you, because it's going to be building evidence that you've done that. Well, what happens in a society when you can avoid accountability by just paying more money, and you've got plenty of it to pay, and you might as well just take it in a wheelbarrow and wheel it all over to the other person, and then go back to doing what you want to do and not be accountable or responsible at all? That is one of the situation and circumstances that we're in. Accountability is not high on the radar list because The long arm of the law means that the law is running the marathon where the marketer is running the sprint. I'm just interested in creating a new message to distract from the old message that I gave, that distract from the next message. And then I can call that I've changed my mind, and or I didn't say that. That's not what I really meant there. You didn't really hear me fully right back then. So the lesson and the expertise in avoiding accountability is that I get to treat language as an illusion, not as an instrument of accountability.
Whoa. Now that's for a language and communication show. That's a big quote right there.
I treat it as an illusion. I'm using language in smoke and mirrors. It's not like Democrats don't have their version of it, or Republicans aren't pressing the edge of the version of that. Nothing to look at here. Nothing to look at here. This is political. Kind of, no, it's not. It's not. When you use language to get people to motivate to do something, they do something terrible and then say, hey, we didn't mean that, or we did mean that, because we have a belief that's not validated in truth, and we're going to keep saying that. Now, the weird thing about the long arm of the law is that is the arm something that has muscle and is strong, the long arm of the law, or is it kind of a weakling arm? It doesn't have a lot of muscle and it's not very strong. That is something also to think about, Tom, because what's happening is you can rewrite the laws to be weak, so the long arm of the law can't help you. And welcome to the fight of civil rights or the voting rights right now. It's the laws are being written so that they are weaker and can't be applied.
Or that they are, weaker is one way to look at it, or the laws can be written in such a way to appear like they're providing safety and protection for something, when in fact there's sort of a ulterior motive or purpose.
The language of illusion.
Yeah.
I have an illusion. I'm stating an illusion that mail-in drop boxes lead to fraud. I just said a sentence because somebody could take a lot of ballots, dump them into the box impersonally, and somebody can open that box, ignore that there's illegal ballots in the box, as if that is happening. I don't think so, because there's an accountability piece there. There's supposed to be, at least. And
yeah,
at least. And if there wasn't an accountability piece, I would be the first person to say, hey, who did not count that box correct? What volunteer or what person did that thing?
Or who didn't verify that each vote came in from a registered voter or was matched up with a signature or whatever. There are many different checks and balances there. So this is very interesting, Bill, because we often on this show talk about how language is used to how it can be or maybe should be used to reveal truth. And now we're talking about how language is almost weaponized to avoid accountability, integrity, having to take responsibility for your actions.
Yeah. And the sentence called "many people say it's true" is not a sentence of evidence. It's a sentence of belief, bias, or confirmation that something is wrong here because it's not the way I would like to believe it to be true. Do you see how I had to corkscrew my mouth around that?
Yeah.
I couldn't even barely get around it. It was really hard to do. Somebody doesn't believe the way I believe, and I'm listening to my leader who doesn't believe the way I believe. And he said, just look at Pennsylvania. Watch this, where I was ahead, and all of a sudden by midnight I was behind. There has to be voter fraud. Instead of places that needed to be counted had a higher volume than the places that had low volume, and they were counted first. And they have more efficiency because they have more volunteers, They have more people counting in those rural areas. And the vote was going in one direction, where in the cities, not so much so. They don't have as many people counting the votes because the number of votes come in such a accelerated fashion and all at once. So removing the boxes is not the issue.
Right. Well, so this is very interesting, Bill. So, I was kind of, trying to be humorous at the outset of this episode. I mean, the expert that we can learn from in avoiding accountability and being responsible is former President Donald Trump, or at least one of the experts we can learn from.
And I could have jumped into that answer early, but I resisted the bait because the foundation of avoiding accountability, and the person that you can learn best about avoiding accountability, is a 6 to 12-year-old, a 6 to 15-year-old. Those little human beings do the same thing.
Oh, they do. My 7-year-old does it all the time. Why is this cereal bowl left here in the living room and not in the kitchen sink? I didn't do it. I mean, it's an immediate reaction, Nobody asked if you did it. Why is it here? I didn't do it.
Anyway. So the 7-year-old, the 12-year-old, the 15-year-old, the 17-year-old, the 21-year-old, the 25-year-old has got to do a bit of lying to just prop up their world. They got to prop up their decision making, or lack of it. They got to prop up their actions to protect themselves. They ain't going to admit to it. This is why you don't lock up your 7-year-old, or you don't punish them as often as you could. This is why you don't give them a 7-year sentence for leaving a bowl in the living room. But Tom, aren't you teaching them non-accountability for their actions? And aren't you also reinforcing their strategy of becoming a very defensive person that does what they want and tries to sneak around and do it and not take accountability? Aren't you fostering that? What kind of parent are you, Tom?
I'll tell you, parenting is a challenge. We make our best efforts. Yes. Well, but seriously, when we look at what's happening here in our country right now, I mean, there are some recent events that are really big news, really should be big news, or earth shattering. I mean, the Supreme Court just made the decision that they are not going to stop the National Archives from releasing the records that January 6th committee has been seeking from the White House. And it was overwhelming. I read it was a vote of 8-1 with only Clarence Thomas dissenting.
Right.
So this is a pretty clear thing to say that decision first of all, it legitimizes the January 6th committee and what they're trying to do. It legitimizes the subpoena power of the House of Representatives, that it does have teeth, that there, you may not want there to be accountability for whatever you said, or the phone calls you had, or whatever documents were created, but there will be accountability now. And it also says it's not political, because Trump's Supreme Court, that the 3 justices he put on there did not vote his way on this.
Great truth, no help.
Okay, sorry.
Great truth. That's no help.
Okay.
Because he's already planted the crop, the seeds, the field of, and have tested the name Rhino. He's already done that already. So he's already got Republican in name only going as a counter marketing narrative to people who are Republicans that don't agree with him. He's already got that ground laid. So what his next thing is, he's going to go after the Supreme Court and say to them, you are rhinos. He's going to turn on all the people that voted that are there. He's going to do that because he just needs somewhere between 3 to 5 messages that are directed in the general area of the Supreme Court so that his followers stay with him. It's not about, it's about weakening the long arm of the law. That's what
Well,
this
which, as we said, he's an expert in, and definitely, and in all the messaging around it, and how he's now let's take on, I mean, he's done it his whole life to avoid accountability and responsibility,
Mhm.
and he's just continuing that now, isn't he?
Yeah, and the damage is honesty, truth through exaggeration. I mean, you and I exaggerate and in the past just to make the story that we're telling ourselves true in small, medium, and large ways. Yes, this is the right answer. It's like, no, it's not. Go ask somebody that actually knows the answer. It's like, because we're just trying to get through our day, and we're going to make adjustments, and the same thing with taxes or any other self-reporting mechanism that takes integrity, honesty, and straightforwardness or integrity. It takes that to do your taxes on your own, and then get your tax person to do this. And it's a lot of times the tax person does not ask the question, and it does not become an advocate for you, because if they give it an advice, they might be stepping over the line, for their own integrity. You cannot tell them you did XYZ, that you're doing it this way, because it's actually out of the alignment of the tax code. And then they're accountable for the long arm of the law. See how that one works. So when it came down that Trump exaggerated on the size of his penthouse and doubled the size of it, doubled the size of the penthouse, you and I could say it is right there on the tax return. It is a exaggeration, a doubling, or it crossed the line towards frauding the federal government of tax money, or the state of tax money.
Yeah, or defrauding the banking system for a loan that you got based on the value of that property. I mean, and then, not to be picky, Bill, and this is sort of the blue side of me, but he actually tripled the size of the penthouse on the forms. So you took a 3,000 square foot apartment and made it 10,000 square feet. And I mean, that's actually a felony when you lie on, loan applications and things like that. I don't know what it is for the tax code. It's probably a felony also, if it's proven, you're convicted.
Well,
But the
see, all of
law,
a sudden it's like, well, I'm sorry, it was a clerical error. It needed to be,
right?
I don't know who did that. Oh, that Weisselberg did it. It's like, accountability has a strong relationship to blame and shame, which, I don't know, you may have noticed he blames and shames a lot of people.
Oh, it's
And he
always somebody else's fault. And, and everybody who works for him is, the best person or the best people until they're not, until they're no longer in alignment with him. And then, oh, it's entirely their fault and they're a loser and, they're
yeah.
low class.
The-
They were never any good.
So the lessons from the expert is use blaming and shaming language, use criticism, use defensiveness. And when you use defensiveness, sprinkle in all ranges of denial in it. Just keep going after the denial. And then shift the accountability to many people are saying this is true. Many people have the evidence. Wait a minute, let's go avoid accountability. My taxes are being audited. I can't turn in my tax returns for the election.
Oh yeah, I can't make them
For
public.
for 4 or 5 years, we heard that. 4 or
Oh
5
yeah.
years? Who's doing the audit? You know?
Well, and now, in the ultimate irony, I mean, it's I'm calling it that. We'll see if that sticks here. But in the ultimate irony, former President Trump, for at least 5 years, certainly 4 years of being president, avoided accountability for his actions on several lawsuits because he was president. And the Justice Department, who he put obviously his attorney general in place. The Justice Department said, hey, the president can't be sued for anything civilly. And if it's anything criminal, it has to be done through the Congress, through impeachment, because it's a distraction to him doing his job. He can't be sued. You have to wait to sue until after you're president. So now he's the former president and he is being sued civilly. And now, as we said, well, I don't know if we actually said it, but the Attorney General of New York has come out and said, hey, we have evidence now. He and his two of his adult children, fudge the numbers here to meet their purposes both ways, to increase the value of their real estate holdings to get more loans and to decrease the value to avoid taxes. So they were playing it both ways. And now the issue of executive privilege, the Supreme Court has said, sorry, the National Archives can release the documents. Well, the day that both of those decisions came down, or those things made news, the same day, in the sort of ultimate irony of avoiding accountability and not taking responsibility, or facing the music, if you were, that's what my dad would say.
That's right.
Is he announced that he is running for president in 2024 so that he can again label all this as a political witch hunt, and hoping he will be able to drag out the legal process enough that when he's president again, that will stay any legal actions against him. So you were talking earlier, Bill, about weakening the long arm of the law. Isn't that the ultimate weakening of the long arm of the law?
That is the ultimate weakening. You're just gonna use the system against the system to avoid responsibility and accountability, and integrity is about winning the game using the rules that are in place and then changing the rules to continue to win the game. So that is what is not front and center. What's front and center is that look at this terrible person doing these things. Not, why don't we just strengthen the arm of the law so that it meets our ethics and values as a country. And then we're able to rebrand ourselves to go, yeah, we came across this guy and this guy took advantage of the system, and nobody challenged this system until this guy took advantage of the system. And now we need to actually not weaken the things to make it easier for the guy to game the system or the next guy. But we want to strengthen the long arm of the law so that you want to get into this, you're doing time. You want to get into this, it's not going to be 3 years. It's going to be 18 months and you're going to show up. We're going to shorten the accountability. We're not going to allow a lawyer to drag it out to raise their fees to XYZ. So we're not doing that. The judges need to say, counselor, you're dragging you're gonna lose if I'm gonna write against you if you try to drag this out. This is not a drag out jobby. This is bring your evidence. You've got this amount of time to do it. And if you don't have it, then I am going to write the thing on the other side because I'm not doing it. See, the use of propaganda has a lot of space, creates a lot of damage here because, and Trump knows this, he says, just say that we're recounting the votes. Just say that there are irregularities. So the big part of this show is what do you say to this to stop it? How do you stop this? So let's see if we can get our brain back onto how do you listen to the message of somebody avoiding accountability and then change your message so they create accountability. Give them an out so they can still hold on to their self-worth and respect, but still be accountable. So let's use your daughter as an example.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to do parenting, Bill Stierle Parenting 101. Step one, when you are noticing a mistake, change judgmental language into observational language instead of who left the bowl in the living room, because now you've got judgmental language sitting right there.
Whoops.
You say, when I see the bowl on the coffee table, when I see the bowl on the table, and then shift it to a request to meet a need. Would you be willing to carry that bowl to the sink at this time? Now, what happens is the person is a little stuck because you're not saying they did something wrong. You're just telling a present moment action. A present moment action is, yeah, you left it there. Human beings leave things there all the time. Your new accountability, your old accountability was to bring it there after. Your new accountability is to bring it there now.
Well, and it actually, by asking if they'd be willing to do that now, it puts them in the place of thinking about, am I willing to do, or am I not willing to do that? And do I want to be that person that's not willing to do it? Or, they get a chance to think about what type of person do I want to be? And I can say, it may be better off for me with dad and mom if I comply and be willing to move the ball now. And it maybe probably does more to reframe their thinking about responsibility than actually trying to immediately hold them accountable and point out something that they perhaps didn't do properly before.
That's correct. The person, as we're experiencing nationally too, the person is going to want to deny. They're going to want to justify. They're going to want to blame or assign the mistake to somebody else, when you know that no one else is there. It's just they're the only ones that left the bowl there. It's like you're sitting with the truth. Now, this is where the long arm of the law has some problems, where we need to create a relationship with integrity, which might sound like this. If they say, I didn't do it, that means that they're still trying to protect themselves from something they didn't need to protect themselves. And they're trying to get away from a punishment that's not coming. You didn't have your bowl, even though they're lying to us. I hear that you didn't bring the bowl, but would you be willing to support me now by bringing the bowl? And it's kind of helpful for the family, and it helps to keep our place clean. So you bring the bowl. Now, all of a sudden, they're doing it for you. They're not doing it because they're getting punished. They're doing it from a place of an internal motivation. Now, with the current condition that's out there, whether it's Republicans that believe one thing, Democrats that believe the other thing, there still is amount of empathy that is needed and accountability that's needed for certain things that people say or do. So holding the person accountable is voting the person out of office. But if you do a really good job of tribalizing and make the other side a worse demon, then the voter has to vote for the person that doesn't have integrity, because the other person's evil. Now, my person lies, but that person's evil. It's
as
like,
if that's a justification for lying.
That's correct. That's right. They're doing whatever they can to fight the evil people, is the way that's what's turning out. So we're in a very precarious place of unwinding ourselves from, I met a Republican, I've met a Democrat, and when I'm meeting with them, they seem like they might have some beliefs that I don't agree about, but I can make it safe to talk about beliefs that I don't agree about, and kind of explore the good reasons why they voted in the way they did, because they can't vote in the other way, and they're weighing certain issues. I want this person because this person stands for a core one single issue vote person. That's what has happened to us, single issue vote. If I want, more Democrats to put out on the ballot, I'm going to put legalize marijuana, and I get more voters out because I put that on the ballot. And then they happen to check the boxes about these people that they don't know anything about. They have no idea who the hell they're voting for. They're just voting for that issue. And all I got to do is pollute or populate the ballots with issues that they are interested in getting done. So I'll put anti-abortion laws in, not to get the abortion thing going, but to bring out my voter. That's the person that's most likely to do that. Notice the integrity and the accountability and the responsibility is not about having a healthy dialogue about taking the government taking choice away from its citizens, which is what a anti-abortion law does. They would say it's taking the choice away from the child, the unborn.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, what about their choice? You see, that's the healthy dialogue. The healthy dialogue is said, do you lean towards the choice of the mother, or do you lean towards the choice of the child? Well, she gave up her choice. I don't think that's really fully true. It's like there's other elements that are going into that choice. So to reestablish and to really get people to be more empathetic and more compassionate is to understand that we can be mad at the way our language has put us into this spot, but there's also creating a healthy dialogue around accountability, responsibility, integrity. What does fairness look like in the law? How does fairness work with a person that has a lot of money? Because fairness might not look that way. If a company pollutes something and it costs $250 million to clean it up, but the fine is $10 million, and then the government has to foot the rest of it back, and the company gets to take the profit. That's not fair. And they made a choice that caused a consequence. Again, accountability, long arm of the law, short arm of the law. The law can't reach it because you keep weakening the law. And that's the current condition that we're in. So Tom, the next thing we could take a look at the next time we get together might be a way to how to have integrity at the relationship between the various different issues that we have, like the environment, like the political system, the criminal system, the civil system, the economic. See, there it opens up so much around integrity around those various different systems that, there's work to be done there.
I think there's a lot of work to be done there. I'd love to talk more about integrity. And the other thing we can talk about there is I'm not so sure that Americans in general really care too much about integrity right now. I mean, I don't know. I don't see people being upset about it, but it'll be very interesting to talk about it.
I agree with you. I think the need for integrity is one that needs a what do you call a remodeling,
a reset, maybe
a reset. It's like, there's got to be something when somebody says something that they're held accountable. And it's really hard because, we justify our own means all the time. We fly spy planes over other countries. Does that meet their need for privacy? No, not really.
And I'm sure we always deny that we're doing it, which
and there's a justification.
It's not meeting a need for integrity. So anyway, yeah, boy, this would be an interesting sort of ethics and civics kind of discussion.
It really is.
In a lot of ways. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Bill.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to this Purchasing Truth podcast. We trust that you have enjoyed this engaging and thought-provoking conversation. Our hope is that you've received value, found clarity, and broadened your truth perspective in this episode. If you did, leave us a review or visit our website, purchasingtruth.com. Join us again for another informative and content-rich discussion here at the Purchasing Truth podcast. Don't just accept whatever information comes your way. Join the discussion. Discover your own voice. Purchase your own truth.